got to dissolve, Charles, but we're dealing with the Dumbfather today.
There we are.
He's pretty dumb.
You think he's celebrating Father's Day today?
I think he's celebrating Dumbfather's Day today.
We're speaking, of course, of our president. And I remember in 2009, I think it was, it might even have been at CPAC, Rush Limbaugh gave a speech where he said that his fervent wish would be that Barack Obama fail as president. And he took a lot of heat for that.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that mean that we would all be up S's Creek?
No, because what he was arguing is that Barack Obama had made a pledge with dumb Joe Biden to fundamentally transform or remake America. And now we see
he's succeeding.
Right. I mean, he had 8 years bite at the apple, Barack and Joe did, to put in place a structural government deficit, to pile on debt, to change the bureaucracy, to denude the military.
Favor China, favor Iran.
Right. And he made all those changes, and they knew, that a successor, if it was Hillary Clinton, she'd make it worse, and if it, in their minds, God forbid, if it was Donald Trump, this guy's scared of me. If it was Donald Trump, he'd have only limited wherewithal to roll all this stuff back. And now
he's a gold bug, Charles.
He is.
Man, wait a minute, before we get too deep into the explanation, which I don't want to interrupt, we should explain what we're doing here in New York's Times Square.
Well, that's a big question, Jason. We'd have to seek counseling, I think, from rabbis and imams and ministers and the Pope, and who knows why actually we're here. But the theory was we had seen a sign of a pro-Israel protest was going to happen at 3:30 p.m. here in Times Square. And given the abhorrent violence that has occurred ever since, just as the ceasefire in Gaza came together, the incidents out there in Los Angeles, here in Manhattan.
Yeah, just right here,
actually. Right here, exactly. People walking up and asking, "Are you Jewish?" And then, if you are, either beating you up or mixing you up or kicking you or worse. And I got to say, we have real differences that divide us in this country, but they're not going to be settled internally by actual physical violence. And people across the political spectrum should tamp things down a lot. And then, as far as the conflict is concerned in the Middle East, I suppose there is an argument. If we look back at 9/11, we could say that after decades of the United States meddling around the world, we suffered what has happened in other countries when foreign interests came in and knocked down the World Trade Center and nearly knocked the Capitol down and forced us to shoot a plane down, possibly in Pennsylvania.
We really don't know that those were foreign interests. There has not been a proper investigation.
I'm just saying, assuming they might have been, there is an argument that says, okay, you got a taste of your own medicine. But
Palestinians were celebrating on that day, by the way.
I
think Americans should recall when they take up their cause.
Right, and not to necessarily make it a Palestinian versus American issue or Palestinian versus Israeli issue. I think it's an American versus all foreign nation issue that we should want peace inside our borders. And those,
I just think it's a maniacs versus calm people, because my thing is there's obviously a lot on both sides. And by that I mean there are lies, there's propaganda, there's truth, there's anger. But if we cannot have a representative, let me share something with you, Charles, because right here, Tara Sapansky, who you and I have had on the show, did a very good video where she just showed up. She has a tendency to just kind of show up and document.
Right.
And in her video, right here, we saw a white woman, conceivably Jewish. She was on the pro-Israel side. She looked healthy and fit, like she had food, money, Pilates classes, fancy clothing and hair. And she had a little white dog wearing an Israeli flag outfit. And she was waving around the dog and taunting the Palestinian supporters in a way that frankly was inexcusable. She should not be doing that. Taunting people is not the path toward peace.
Right.
And that woman should acknowledge that she played a role in inciting the anger that caused people to go kick somebody in the head while they're down on the sidewalk. And what I am in favor of is representatives from both sides who can sit down and have a conversation conversation and try to arrive at a peaceful solution. Because if you come to the table saying there is no peaceful solution, then I have no choice but to be on the side of people with guns who are going to defend people just because they're Jewish. And that's the side I have to take.
Are you Jewish by any chance?
What's that?
No, but we're not.
Why are you asking me that?
So basically this is factories and it's
I really object to people coming up to me and asking me what my religion is, whatever their religion is. That includes you.
I understand that. So basically
Have a nice day. I don't want to hear what you're selling.
Huh?
Take a walk, please. I don't want to talk to
Oh,
you.
I'm not selling it.
I just don't want to talk to you about tefillin or Judaism or anything. Please walk
Have a
away.
blessed day.
I'm asking you to leave. I just don't like unsolicited approaches. Get the angry look off your face and walk away. Just walk away now. Stop talking to me. Go away, please. I didn't ask you to talk to me. I'm asking you to leave. You guys are why people dislike us. I'm asking you to leave, and you're refusing to leave. Go away. Go away. This is what I'm talking about. Pushy people who want to project their beliefs onto me. I don't want to hear about wrapping tefillin. I don't want to be asked if I'm Jewish. I'm not going to ask anybody if they're Palestinian. I want to speak to people who want to peacefully coexist.
Well, see, I would take it even a step backward. I would say the first issue facing we in America is making sure that we in America are safe.
Yes.
We got control of America, right? That's the first thing we got to get right, and we don't have that right. The issue of what's going on in the other 199 countries around the world or whatever, that's a secondary set of issues. We're not responsible for that. You know, we may have alliances around the world, but we are not fundamentally responsible for what happens in any other country except this one. And I think, if anything, we should have learned since 1989, when we began experimenting with this unregulated globalist crap, that none of that works. These globalist institutions don't work, and we have piled on so much debt and continuing deficits on this country that we're making it very difficult to have clean streets, safe cities, good highways, good dams, good schools, etc. We've lost sight of what's in our national interest, and we're wasting too much time focusing on other people's problems, in my view. That's where I'd start. I'd say I'm prepared as a citizen of this country to support the idea that we would have a State Department and a Defense Department engaged in trying to protect ourselves from foreign enemies, and if that means doing some stuff internationally, fine, but our priority belongs right here, in my view.
Yeah, I agree. And I just object fundamentally to people who are trying to indoctrinate others into their religious beliefs. I just find that offensive. And if somebody approaches me on the street while I'm in conversation with you, it seems pretty obvious that we're doing something. Right. That guy was rude, pushy, intrusive. Right. I told him to not talk to me. He wouldn't listen. Right. I really dislike that. But people need to understand that that's the type of thing that's causing fights, problems, and disagreements. We need to listen to the other side and try and find some way to peacefully coexist. All of these celebrities who are just saying that the Palestinian plight is the Black Lives Matter plight, they're stoking this violence.
Well, they're very different fights, very different issues, right?
Right, but they are inciting people who want to fight the cops, who want to run up to you and make a snap decision about the way you look, or what religion you might have been born under, or whatever kind of thing that, frankly, shouldn't matter.
Well, so in the first instance, the first distinction I draw is that your religion is your choice. You don't have a choice to be white or black. I mean, Rachel Dolezal had made a choice, but I mean, in reality, you're either born one way or you're not, right? So I would draw a distinction, first of all, and say, look, if I choose to be a Christian, that's my choice, my belief, I have that right, then I need to deal with that.
Butter in 3D, Charles.
I don't know. But in the case of disadvantaged black people in this country, you know, there are some unresolved problems we have to be honest about, and I don't think they involve reparations. I don't think they involve handouts. I think they involve a reform of the school system and breaking these ridiculous unions that enrich retirees and administrators and do nothing for the communities that need to be served. There are a lot of things that need to be done. But when we look behind the current strife involving the BLM, which is, I think, a fake set of organizations, as near as we could tell from our homework, and then the supposed pro-Palestinian movements, we have to ask, who is funding these operations? We know that after the recent truce took place in Israel, the Hamas, the terrorist organization, thanked Iran for supplying it with weapons during the 10-day strike. You know, that to me, and we've got this idiot John Kerry on his windsurfer going around the world promoting climate change solutions.
Is he windsurfing?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just making that part of it up. But
that would make me like it more. I like
and bicycling, you know, with a stupid helmet falling down. You know, going around trying to appease the Iranians when I think he's got a daughter who's married into an Iranian family.
But not just an Iranian family; it's some diplomat.
Powerful family. Yeah. So, you know, we should be asking ourselves, this violence that's being fomented, both involving BLM and involving Palestinians, could that be funded by foreign interests, for example, the Chinese?
Well, we have a Chinese representative right over there, Charles.
The representative of the restaurant chain there,
maybe Panda, whatever that disgusting panda is
King
called.
Panda, or whatever.
Panda Express.
Panda Express.
That is one of the worst. I ate there once in Los Angeles.
But you don't like Chinese food.
Correct, and that's the McDonald's of Chinese food.
Yeah.
It's about the worst.
Yeah. You haven't had any good Mugu Gai Pan recently?
I have not had that. But so Charles, the reason that we're here is that there's supposed to be a demonstration. You mentioned this. There's supposed to be a demonstration at 3:30, but just from looking around, I feel like we would see people setting up microphones and stuff if that was going to happen. Maybe something happened since we heard about it.
Well, maybe what we should do is maybe we should walk downtown to 42nd Street and then either west or east and see if something happens in the interim.
Yeah, and likewise, if anybody is watching and sees something
wow, that's impressive.
Of interest. What did he do? Balance it?
Oh, let's not get by the naked cowboy. Let's go that way.
Where is he?
Cowboy's right over there to your left. Straight ahead. I just don't want to get embroiled in a discussion.
I just want to see him fight the naked old lady. Actually, I think he would win. I don't want to see him beat up an old lady. We could have a contest to see who's drunker.
He's probably 80, but he's pickled. This guy again.
Naked cowboy versus naked old lady. People who were watching last week would have seen the naked old lady.
May the best boob win.
Right.
Oh man. To think that at one time this was just a bustling scene of positive activity, and now it's just like a dirt festival.
Well, there's definitely more people back.
But it's just, look at the sidewalks. They're filthy, there's garbage.
That's always been the case, though.
I don't know. I mean, in the 70s, 60s and 70s, but when it was cleaned up for a while, the streets would be washed. You'd have stores that were actually open.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. What about the unwashed masses?
Right. Sorry.
They could wash them. Well, Charles, any developments that we want to talk about? Oh, yeah. I was hopeful that Matt Schlapp would get back to me with regard to his availability for a conversation today. He seems to have plenty of time to be tweeting nonsense this morning.
What was he tweeting about?
I mean, everything he puts out is pretty stupid.
But what was he tweeting?
You know, whatever the talking point, whatever the anti-Democrat talking point on Fox News is that day, he's tweeting and retweeting stuff from Fox. And then we have the B-grade robots and superheroes back there.
Yeah, well,
Look, Amazon advertising Twitch.
Where do you
People
see
can
that?
watch it. It just went away. It was right here. People can watch us on Twitch, Charles. Oh yeah, there's something else I wanted to share.
What's Twitch?
Twitch is a YouTube alternative that's primarily focused on video gamers, owned by Amazon, but we've been broadcasting there for like 3 or 4 years.
Really? And I didn't know about it?
Well, the other thing that I've done, Charles, is I've added the...
I didn't have a need to know.
I think I've probably mentioned it.
I don't think so.
Well, sorry.
Well, my memory is going, so.
I apologize. Anyway.
Okay, I'm not criticizing. I'm just surprised I didn't know.
Just real quick, I wanted to let everybody know that if they go to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, I've made available for free to everybody this video where Patrick Byrne assaulted me. And when I looked up the statute for assault in Nevada, it is basically
Describing what
I don't remember
happened?
it offhand, but yeah, it described what happened. Trying to intimidate someone, making them feel that they are in imminent danger of bodily harm, physically threatening them. So, you know, the guy basically has 2 open carry armed security guards. He tells them to throw me out. Then while they're trying to throw me out, they're physically grabbing me and things like that. He comes back over, he grabs my equipment, he's yelling about nonsense and arguing. I mean, I don't know what it is that he's up to. I don't know what his plan is, but you know, people, even if they aren't sponsors, they can now review this video and draw their own conclusions. But you know, Patrick Byrne is officially not a friend of the show. I don't trust him. I don't like him. I don't like being thrown out of places and having weirdos grab my stuff. But the question is, why are these guys insistent on refusing to look at evidence that Mary Fanning and Dennis Montgomery are bad witnesses?
I don't know. I thought I heard shouting just now. Maybe
I'm
it's-
hearing this clicking, so give me 1 second
Sure.
to try to.
You know what? Please. Let me put 29, 29. 29.
left.
An old lady cowgirl? Oh boy. That's a real,
It's like
I don't know, point.
nightmares.
Yes. So Lady Gaga is doing something with Selma Hayek, I saw online. I don't know if we're going to see a protest here today.
I guess not.
So what do you think about Matt Schlapp's failure to respond to the invitation?
Well, if he's decided to do any work or have people do any work on the record, he will quickly conclude that he's in serious trouble. Let's wait for a second. Say what?
Everybody have a quarter, 50 cents to spare. So I get something to eat. Everybody got 50 cents, a quarter to spare.
Oh my God.
yeah.
It's just depressive. I mean, on my walk up to you, literally every block there were a series of people like that.
I don't know if people saw on camera, but that was a guy wearing a wool cap, panhandling.
Aggressively so. And here we have in front of, this is Thomson Reuters, the building, and here we have in front of it this wonderful array of garbage on the street. You know?
You know, it's interesting. Reuters, I meant to do a screen capture of this so we could discuss this, but hang on just a quick second. They had covered this story that I first saw in Newsweek, I believe they did, talking about this 60,000 strong clandestine army that's the largest undercover force known in the world. That was previously unknown, according to Newsweek, until they told us all about it. Did you
You
see
mean it's
that?
super secret? Yeah.
Oh, you sent it to me.
Yeah. Now, what do you want to do? Do you want to go? You tell me. I mean,
Well,
we could
does
go.
anybody know if this protest is happening or not? Let's see if the comments know. Naked Cowboy was a big Trump supporter. I think he still is. Juice, the satanic chosen tribe, is glad he's in Jersey. That sounds like that's something I probably shouldn't have read, but I think that's a stupid. So, Ink Paper says Jason and Charles know very little of Israeli Jewish history and are muffling the facts. I've never hidden the fact that I know very little about Israel and Jewish history. I'm talking about the short history of last week in New York City.
Should we go down to 8th and then
Sure.
up the other and then across
And I'm
46th?
just saying, if people want to come to New York City and do violence, that's when I start getting involved in the conversation. The other thing I wanted to mention about Taras Sapansky's broadcast on the Polish American Brotherhood YouTube channel is that while this woman with the dog, this white, apparently Jewish woman with the dog, was taunting a crowd of clearly angry Palestinian supporters, the Palestinian side was shouting really offensive, crazy stuff. Now that guy's wearing an Extinction Rebellion shirt.
Really?
Not to be
Which
ADD,
one?
but I can never resist.
The guy with the backpack there?
Andy No had a thing on Twitter that Extinction Rebellion
It's funded by.
captured a street in Portland and was painting their logo on the ground as of.
Well, that's something financed by Jamie Cooper Hone, who's the guy we did a Children's Investment Fund Foundation.
We're going to talk more about that. But just to finish on the thing with the Palestinian guy, he shouted back to the pro-Israel side, oh yeah, you know, you this and that, hide behind the cops like you do at home. And the first thing that occurred to me was, this guy spoke English perfectly, so was he born there and immigrated here and is referring to it as home in that way? Or is he someone who has recently arrived here on a student or travel visa to protest the government, which is not what those visas allow you to do?
Right,
And why are you coming here if you hate this country?
right, for no good reason. There's AMC.
I'm very wary of what's going on with AMC. So what's up with
Nice luck.
Gasparino promoting AMC stock?
Can't explain Gatsby, but let's go back like 3 or 4 questions because
Sure.
you asked
Sure.
a bunch. Just let's focus on Match Lab for a
I know.
second. So every day I go more and more into the record concerning the American Conservative Union Foundation and the American Conservative Union, and the record is vast. And one of the things I've managed to do is develop a relationship with somebody in the equivalent of the Secretary of State's office, because there is no Secretary of State in the District of Columbia, but the equivalent. And what I've discovered, Matt, is that the American Conservative Union Foundation did not file the required annual report to remain an entity in good standing in 2002, 4, or 6. And they only filed the 6th report, I think, I'm getting it, in 2009. And what that means is that if you're not in good standing in your home territory, you can't be in good standing in any other state. And if you're not in good standing, you're not an organization, meaning you shouldn't be soliciting money.
And you're
Across-
not tax exempt.
You may not be tax exempt should the IRS decide to go back and look at the record. So the record is actually very clear. When you look at facts, you know, forget the bluster, forget the internal memos that will probably say what a great job the organizers of the various CPACs did from 2001 to 2009 and forward. The public filings, however, which are submitted under penalties of perjury, and in most cases using the mail, and I bring that up all the time because when you commit multiple acts of perjury and then send the document using the mail, what are you going to go?
Well, let's go on that side because it's super sunny and I'm
I was
worried
going to
about
go.
overheating.
I was thinking we'd go back 42nd
Oh,
Street
okay,
and
sure.
over.
Yeah.
But once it crosses.
Sure.
Anyway, once we change. So these are multiple crimes, which you can write up and assuming at the appropriate time that we make a case that brings him into the statute of limitations, which I think you could do. And obviously we'll be consulting with lawyers eventually about that further. But you have a first order level set of problems in that a bunch of paperwork has been submitted in the name of a purported organization, American Conservative Union Foundation, that doesn't in fact exist. Then you have the issue that, and this took me a while to figure out because I couldn't believe people would be this brazen.
Wow.
You have people around the American Conservative Union and the American Conservative Union Foundation putting out various versions of reports for the same year to various entities that are different. So you have, for the ACU, you have reports in 2000, I think it is 9, or maybe 7, maybe 7, 8, and 9.
They didn't file in 2007.
Well, ACU, that's my point. ACU, that's right. In 2007, they do not file with the IRS, but they send to New York and they send to California and some other states. Somebody sends in a version of an American Conservative Union 990 for 2007, not signed, and dated different dates that are all wrong.
Is that because they can't coordinate their criminal activity, or they're just trying to confuse?
I don't know. I mean, they're just mayhem is them. But when you get that into, and it's a lot more actually detail oriented than I'm going to get into right now. It's one thing if you think about a criminal conspiracy and you say, somebody sent one letter to President Trump with one stamp, cutting out letters of the alphabet, just making this up, threatening the president's life. That's one example. That would be taken very seriously. Secret Service would look into that. The FBI would look into that. And that person would be brought to justice, because in our system you can't let a single one of those things go by. Otherwise it encourages others. In the case of this ACUF, there's a very big question as to what type of charity it actually is. Most people understand that there's something called a 501c3. That's a charity. But in the subset underneath 501c3 is whether you're a private charity or a publicly supported foundation. In the fake, and I believe it is a fake forged determination letter that has been circulating around the country, supporting the argument that ACUF is in fact a charity. There's handwritten in that this charity is a 170B 1A6 509A1 publicly supported charity. That's a charity that is supported by governments, by other foundations, and by the general public.
Give us one quick second. It's just now, it's spanning devices, it's spanning audio interfaces. It's a very vexing problem. Hopefully it gets solved. Okay, I think we're back.
Right, and so then the other type of publicly supported one is a 509A2. And a 509A2 is one that is supported by membership subscription.
Yeah, it says no members.
Well, 509A2 says membership. It's supported by members. Let me finish, if I may, because I just want to spin the details. So, the 509A2 on the important Schedule A to these 990s, and all these schedules have to be true, accurate, and complete. The ACUF says that it's a 509A2 from 2001 to about 2012, when it's not. The letter specifically says it's not. And then you get to the question of, is the ACUF independent from the ACU or dependent upon it? And there we have...
Real quick.
Sure.
Do you guys know if there's some demonstration scheduled this afternoon?
I think there is, but I'm not sure exactly whereabouts.
Wow. Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you. Stay safe.
So even the police don't know where it is, Charles.
Right. That's
right,
good
sorry.
to know. So, the bylaws for the American Conservative Union Foundation, what?
Well, we could go up this little nook. Maybe it's in there.
I was thinking we go over, back, and by the time we get back, then we'll head back down.
Okay. Sorry. Back to ACU.
It's okay. Just don't stay away from Mr. Dirty behind me.
I was just looking at a weed world.
You got Mr. Clean, you got Mr. Dirty. So, in New York State, in multiple states, in Massachusetts and elsewhere, agents of the American Conservative Union Foundation, MAT, have filed bylaws that purport to be bylaws of the American Conservative Union Foundation as amended on the 10th of February 2006. These bylaws, as you say, and articles, which were altered for that date, claim that there are no members in the ACUF, and also claim that the ACUF is effectively controlled by the ACU in what is called either a parent-subsidiary relationship, bless you, or a brother-sister relationship. And this is all explained in IRS language. And in brief,
just to understand, in the same document where they claim to be this 509 thing that requires members, they're also telling you there are no members.
Right. And so with respect to 2006 to about 2013, they're saying that they're controlled by the ACU in the bylaws. But importantly, from 2008 forward, there's a requirement to fill out a schedule called Schedule R, where you explain your related party transactions. So if you're controlled by the ACU, you have to explain any sums that you pay to the ACU. Are they negotiated at arm's length, and if not, why? And any sums that you may have received from the ACU. Weird Will?
2 We Worlds on one block.
Well, one on each side.
Yeah, no waiting.
Getting you coming and going.
So there's loads of inconsistencies just even within single documents.
Right, and really the question becomes when you try to think about, is this a fraud or not, it's, you look at all the IRS pronouncements in what are called, in the various types of cases, say that you have to focus on the facts and circumstances. So you look at these filings and you say, all right, did the ACUF actually exist in 2001? And if you were to believe, bless you, the February 10th, 2006 amended bylaws, then no, it didn't exist, because it says the bylaws were adopted in 1983 and only amended in February 10th, 2006 for the first time. In 1983, the name of the entity was not American Conservative Union Foundation. It was the John M. Ashbrook Educational Foundation. So if it wasn't, the bylaws weren't amended until 2006, then there weren't any bylaws until 2006 for this American Conservative Union Foundation.
I think I understand now why Matt Schlapp didn't call back.
Yeah, exactly. And all of this, if I were in Matt's position and I were asked to debate me, or somebody like me on this topic, my opening attitude would be, wait a minute, I just got through in March this year of welcoming the Donald and Melania and whoever was there at the CPAC, and I'm flying around the world meeting with Nigel Farage in the UK and Conservative Party leaders around the world, and I've got this consulting practice that's going to mooch off the conservative movement. I'm flying pretty high, right? I don't want to know about the history of the ACUF in 1983 or the history of the American Conservative Union in 1979. It's like, I was in Matt's case, he was probably in elementary school then, right? So that's ancient history, and if there's a problem, it's not my...
Must he know about it?
I don't know. It's one of these things you don't necessarily want to know. It's a common practice that I saw. It's similar to what happened at GE. At GE, what they did is they took this idiot, a young idiot, who's an aggressive idiot. I won't use his name. And actually, I will use his name. Keith Sharon.
What was it?
Yeah, Keith Sharon. And they made him, in his 30s, mid-30s, they made him CFO of all of General Electric. And,
wow.
If you're in your mid-30s and somebody comes along and says, hey, listen, bud, how'd you like to be CFO of all of General Electric?
A couple $1 million, I would think.
A couple million. Jack Welch pulled a bill out of there.
Wow.
As CEO. You probably are not going to say, hey, Jack, I really want to go and understand exactly how GE came together. Did Thomas Edison really start it? Or
right.
was it, I don't want to know the history. It's whatever. It's
Give me the check.
1995. Where do I sign? How high do you want me to jump? What else do you want me to do?
Should we duck into the
Sure.
park for a second?
And so I can understand human behavior a little bit. I could try to. And say that it's natural that Matt might say, look, I know there were problems, they're well publicized to an extent with the American Conservative Union and the Conservative Union Foundation. I know about lawsuits. I know about the fact that while he was on the board, there were accusations that I think it was ACU may have transited a large 1.7 million payment for lobbying, which was strictly prohibited. I know there was a lawsuit, it looks like, with the Marriott Hotel over another reason. I know there are various problems. I know that the former CEO's or chairman's wife went to prison for book cooking and embezzlement, and we don't know the real extent of that. And I know that one of their sons, let's stay in the shade, one of their sons
He
went to jail for 10 years And at the time he went to jail, he was the digital director for either ACU or the ACU Foundation. So I know the organization has problems.
Right.
But what a schlap might say is, those problems were not my fault. Those predated me, and
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk. I don't like to talk about problems. I'm an opportunity man.
But
Right.
It was a good analogy, because when I got on the phone with him, I wish I had recorded this call so I could play it for people, but he just wanted to blow past any of the questions that I had. He asked me if I was conservative, and I told him that I voted for Donald Trump and don't appreciate people who want to turn the United States into a socialist nation. And he said, well, then we should be friends. We should be allies. And it's not the way that it works. Just because I agree with someone on 1 or 2 points doesn't mean I'm going to give them a pass on vast criminality and immediately hook up with them.
Exactly. So, so when you look, it's one thing to have a debate, just about air. Is the air quality good or bad? Is it too sunny, too shady, whatever? It's another thing to say we're going to get together and we're going to talk about facts from the standpoint of, I have, as the critic here, no responsibility to ensure that the running of ACUF or ACU is done lawfully. You, sir, have an absolute responsibility, not merely to make sure that what you do today is correct, but to make sure that the organization is, the public filings that are in the floating around the world as you are raising money are absolutely true, accurate, and complete. And moreover, as a director, you have 3 duties. You have the duty of care, which means you have to take that back, okay?
Well, it's 3:37. So
okay. You have a duty of care, which means you have to take the amount of time required to get stuck into the issues. So when I say it's a problem with your filings, that you, among other things, have not disclosed related party issues, including the fact that you and others may have been making money, other trustees and directors, may have been making money through the operation of these supposed charities, you got to look into that. When I say to you that your filings are not true, accurate, and correct, and you say, well, why don't you consult with my in-house counsel, who you don't tell me has been convicted twice of felonies, then I say to you, you're not being pretty careful. Like, why'd you hire the guy in the first place? I mean, if you had to pick here are a whole bunch of police cars, so maybe they're
getting ready.
If, as you say, I'm making this up, Matt, if you say that you knew about the problems in the past, then why did you say, okay, I have had problems in the past with criminals who worked in the organization who subsequently went to jail. So what I want to do is pluck somebody who had the experience of being a criminal and was pardoned by Donald Trump and make that person my general counsel.
Right.
On top of which I'm going to then have that person work with another supposedly reformed criminal on an initiative that I don't, by my reading, see you have the legitimate right to run through the American Conservative Union Foundation. If you're going to make those choices, it seems to me that you need to explain all this in the public filings. And in certain states, and you operate in many of them, I know, let's not get...
We know this guy.
No, I don't.
Well, he's been on the show before.
That guy?
I mean, he's been in Times Square hanging out. Charles, maybe Matt Schlapp is running one of those things like Dave's Killer Bread, where they hire felons to try to reform them.
Well, maybe that was Matt Schlapp.
Maybe that was Matt Schlapp in the hat, trying to clandestinely... Something just happened to the sound.
I think this is very loud.
So let's go. But it's not loudness, it's electric. Oh man, this thing died. Now wait a minute. So I am not even using that new... Hold that stick for 1 second, Charles. Wow, how did that happen? All right, bear with me 1 second. I have more batteries for this. It's amazing. Or it should come back on now, I think. There's a whole new battery. Why is it coming back on? Oh, Charles, the number of electronic gremlins that plague my... There it is. That'll give
There's
us...
some speaking speaking Arabic trying to find something right there.
Looks like they're shopping.
And there's cops, heavy cops coming in.
Yeah, we're about to head over. Just get a new battery on here. Okay. I believe we should be back.
It's okay, excuse me.
There we go. Okay.
So,
Yes.
what I started to say, Jason, is that to Matt, you have responsibility when you run a charity that's soliciting across the country to make sure that you fill out your paperwork in every state, in addition to DC, where you're required to file. And that's typically a function of whether you're soliciting or not soliciting. So the paperwork that I've reviewed so far in multiple states is absolutely false and materially misleading, in that it doesn't, for example, in New York State, give you the latest bylaws for example, the American Conservative Union Foundation. In 2018, I think somebody realized how screwed up the papers were and said, actually, we can't have a 509A1, 170B1A6 public charity controlled by a 501c4 ACU, so we've got to change the bylaws and make it clear that that's not the case. Well, I mean, you can't just do that. You can't go from, one way of organizing to another way of organizing without getting clearance from the IRS in advance, and there should be paperwork on it.
Well, I thought of another legitimate reason why he might not want to have spoken to you about this.
What?
He
Drinking?
probably suspects that the truth will upset you. So that is apparently a legitimate reason to lie or otherwise not talk about it.
Well, I'll tell you who it should upset. So we have, because these papers have been filed, we have Schedule Bs, which are the precise records of how much money was given to the American Conservative Union Foundation in multiple years, and I think including 2001 and 2009. And those give us the names of certain charities. With those in hand, we can then look in the ProPublica thing and figure out in what other years did those same charities give money to the American Conservative Union Foundation. And if we find a pattern and practice of public charities giving money to the ACUF and mischaracterizing it as being an actual organization when it's not, that's a problem for the donors. And in particular, it's a problem for the legal advisors and trustees of the donors. And here, one of the reasons I thought it worthwhile to get involved in this in the beginning, not merely just beat the crap out of the faulty charities, but to lay a pattern of facts and analysis out there so that future people, future trustees and advisors could not make the same type of mistakes that ACUF and Matt Schlapp and others have made. So we can
Mistakes.
Yeah, right, and mistakes. So that we can basically use this bad behavior, it might be criminality, and hopefully prosecutions and reactions of the guilty parties after they get out of jail. We can use that experience, let's not run, as a way to teach. Or as Obama would say, Barack, let's go that way, a teachable moment.
Right. Well, so this is kind of a little nook of Times Square that we haven't explored that much. There are some police cars around.
More, and they seem to be going that way.
Well, they had also some police motorcycles staged over there.
Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know. I can't understand how the police don't know where the protest is going to happen.
Because they constantly change,
I thought they need a permit for a certain place at a certain time.
That's if you're going to do it lawfully. Typically what they do is they get together, they start at one place, and then they walk throughout the streets gathering negative energy.
I thought that all of that had to be, planned and part of the permit.
And I thought you couldn't throw garbage in the streets.
Look at what we're learning, Charles.
So, back then, so for a second on the ACUF, the record.
Charles, how do people live in New York with all this noise and filth and people all around?
Bear in mind, this is a prime tourist destination right here, where we're going. This is where people swarm from all over the world. They say, well, let's go to Times Square.
Premium filth and noise.
Exactly. I think Lagos, Nigeria is looking good by comparison. Now here are a lot more police.
They have a much lower fatal outcome from COVID-19 in Lagos, Nigeria.
Really?
As we've learned from John Cullen Investigates.
Is
we
that
had a great
right?
episode with Shepard Ambellis on Friday. People can still see it on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. It doesn't look very protesty today, Charles.
Although there are a few more cop cars
Well, but
like
that's
one
the
over there
police
to your right.
station right there.
up the street. There are quite a few more cop cars.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's a van. Yeah, I mean, listen, I am all for a peaceful resolution to any conflict. But if you want to come to New York City, ask somebody if they're Jewish and kick them in the head to what looked like the guy could have died. I mean, they were stomping on his head while he's on the ground. In my view, that's an attempted murder charge. And I just don't even want to hear the argument. If you're going to do that, you got to leave.
Well, of course, in addition, there are plenty of Jewish people who are against the state of Israel. So it's just a juvenile, uneducated question to ask in the first place.
What is?
Are you Jewish?
Well, it's just, I mean, unless I'm like romantically involved with the person or applying for the job of rabbi, how the hell is that relevant? Now, see, these guys are at risk walking around with yarmulkes. There's one guy who was beaten simply for that.
Where do you see that?
Well, these two guys are wearing yarmulkes. I presume they're Jewish, but I mean, if that alone is enough to get you beaten, anybody who is supporting that is supporting criminality, terrorism, hate, racism.
Right, which can be turned against.
You just brought up a point, Charles. I was speaking to Lee Stranahan last night. I was helping him get his Patreon and Subscribestar going because Tuesday we're bringing back High Dive. And we were talking about the whole situation in Israel, and he brought up a frequent guest on his show, The Backstory, which is this Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro.
Not Yaakov Smirnoff?
No. Yaakov Shapiro, he's a serious scholar. Now, wait a minute. Here's Captain America as a woman and with a plastic Hulk.
Yeah, let's stay away from those guys.
But anyway, what Lee was talking about relative to Rabbi Shapiro is that he's Jewish, but he is against Zionism and doesn't like Israel. I don't want to go into all the details of his position, but the point is, you know, he walks around with a hat and, you know, long beard and dressed as a rabbi.
I can address that. I'm not Jewish, but I study this.
But I'm saying he is someone who could be beaten on the street for the way that he looks, when in fact he might be the most valuable ally to finding someone in the middle ground of this argument who can speak to both sides. So that's hateful racism, and just, I mean, anybody getting beaten up for the way that he looks is not good.
This guy's looking at me and saying, is that Joe Biden? That's not racist.
Talking to you?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that's really ridiculous.
Yeah, all white people look alike.
Right, if we said anything like that, we'd be swarmed, beaten.
I know.
The beating would be applauded on the internet.
I have to say, we had a back and forth because you'd already done it. But I watched a little bit of the movie Dirty Rotten Scoundrels yesterday. It happened to be on. And Michael Caine, to me, if you shave the mustache off, he could so easily play Joe Biden.
He's too funny.
Wow, is
too
he funny.
Smart.
He's been in show business for like, I think 60 years.
That's right. And now we have another friend named Michael Caine, who is the representative for New York Teachers for Choice.
Who has not been in show business for 60 years.
No.
All right, so I'm kind of in favor of maybe heading...
It doesn't look like a protest.
Yeah. Of maybe heading across 47th Street over to Fox. And then down...
Sure, wherever you want.
And then down 5th or down... Although, is that... those are Israel flags right there.
Maybe there is a protest. Let's go see.
Yeah, you see? There's a Israel flag. What's
I do
that?
see them, yeah.
So yeah, and there's a Palestinian flag, I think.
All right, let's see what's going on.
Let's start by standing on this side of the street and just let's see how.
I am not in the mood to argue with anybody today. I think we see a lot of people who are on a hair trigger and just want to fight.
Right. Well, yeah, I suppose if we stand near that NYPD cop, we probably could be okay.
They're not going to do anything.
Famous last words.
Ooh, look at that McLaren.
Nice car. Is that your car?
Not mine.
Oh, Jason,
I
come
don't really
on.
like British cars.
Come on, you don't have to be so modest. More hummus, less hummus. That's pretty funny.
I would get a.
Well, there's a guy giving the finger. That's not good.
Yeah, no, that's the start of it. I would probably get a V8 Ford GT if I was going to be one of these like money no object car people, but I'm not really.
I kind of like the Mercedes sedans,
Yeah, I mean,
frankly.
listen, it's a lot of great cars to get, but
So
That
if we
McLaren is
stand,
like
if we stand
$500,000.
like over there, we'll be able to see the
Okay.
negative and.
these guys just want to sell tours. Wait a minute, we got pictures being taken, all kinds of stuff. What side of the debate do you think the naked cowboy grandma is on, Charles?
Oh God! Now what kind of shirt is that? Those are. Oh, there's one Palestinian flag. Let's kind of stand over here.
Sure. I think people are just here to watch a potential fracas.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look nearly as large or organized as it was earlier in the week.
What are those fist t-shirts?
No idea, but it's in the middle of a Star of David, so I guess it's some kind of.
These tend to start
There's
slow.
nothing funnier than a little kid playing with a little dog. I mean, look at that. How can anybody be fighting when you have this little girl playing with that little puppy? Is that a Shar-Pei? What kind of dog is that, Charles?
Kid. Is it one lone
What's the green outfits?
Huh?
These guys, are they from Brazil?
I don't know, but it's just the one Palestinian guy with a flag. I doubt it'll end up being 25-1.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of the other day when in a rare, not giving of advice, but just a mere conversation, you were like, you know, this crypto thing. And I was like, well, Charles, it's not going to go down.
No comment. All I will say is that on Monday, I went ahead and I sold a whole bunch of positions and I bought a lot of gold.
Not advice, not financial
Not advice, just what I did.
Just an anecdotal tale.
Is this guy waving the flag? Does that say police in the back?
Where?
The guy who just came with a flag,
I see.
with a black shirt. Yeah, it says police in the back. See? Yeah, it says police. It's actually pretty tame so far. I shouldn't have said that.
I think if we wanted progress, why isn't somebody hosting a civilized debate rather than demanding that counter-protesters come and throw explosives and fight? I mean, there's tough, angry people on both sides, and then there's intellectual, thoughtful people on both sides. But it doesn't seem like we've had a really effective coming together of anybody other than people who want to clash and fight.
Exactly. Well, sadly, what we see in many fights is that there are people who decide that it's better to be fighting because whether you're on one side or another, you get a supporter to pay you off to keep fighting. And if other people are doing the bleeding and you're doing the shouting, this could be behavior that you continue to do for long periods of time.
I've always felt that way, you know. People presume that because I'm Jewish, I must have some certain
You're
opinion
Jewish?
about Israel. But I mean, and it's the viewers who point out that I don't know that much about it, they're right. I don't claim to. But what I do know causes me to believe that, well, she's not a grandmother, Charles.
She's carrying the flag.
The Jewish flag? The Israeli?
I think it's more to gain attention for her.
She's not that dressed.
She must be from the same country that guy was from last Sunday, walking down Fifth Avenue.
But it almost seems to me, Charles, like Israel was created by a powerful body that wanted a hot button that could be pushed at any time that they wanted to foment chaos, hatred, and fighting by stoking one side or the other or both. It's like a powder keg that they put right there.
I don't know the history intimately. It's going to get really loud right here.
Well, I think these guys are like capoeira guys who are just gonna like perform and want money because they look like they're Brazilian based on the clothing.
What did you call them? Capoeira?
Yeah,
that mean?
let's see if they start to do it. If they like square off and dance in a way that looks like they're fighting, then it's capoeira. I think it is. This is Brazilian colors.
You gonna get in there?
I don't know how to do capoeira.
That'd be pretty funny to have John Kerry square off against Bernie Sanders in capoeira.
Yeah, that would. Brazil is a good example of a country where a lot of cultures have come together and
melting pot. So is this country.
Yeah, but they're trying to make us think it's not.
I don't know, Jason. I kind of have a low noise tolerance, so I wonder if we could.
Let me see if I can.
Gather around, it's about to begin. All fly acrobatic breakdancing. Here we go. Any question? Showtime's coming up in 1 minute. 1 minute till showtime.
It's a big lead-in for these capoeira guys. Let's see what happens.
We're just warming up. 45 seconds till showtime.
I don't know. It's taking forever, Charles.
She took one of them off, Jason.
That ought to interest them.
Kids don't do drugs.
This is a very bizarre pro-Israel demonstration. Oh my God, and now these batteries are down to 0.
What do we do?
I don't know, hopefully it'll last.
Yeah, I don't know what
I
was
put
that.
back the old
It's okay,
software.
guys. We're still on this show, all right, y'all? All right, y'all?
I don't know, Charles, I think,
Let's go up this way.
yeah.
We're still gonna do it. I don't know.
It's like a protest inside a disco.
Awfully noisy. Maybe go over to up there to Fox or
Sure.
Fox in the hen house. God, that was noisy.
Yeah.
I think they're on 47th.
Aren't they in the 50s?
No. They're either 47th or 48th.
Check it out. I gotta figure out what's going on with the batteries on this sound recorder. I have all these,
That was pretty tame, frankly.
yeah.
Loud and tame.
I mean, I wonder if the chaos wasn't orchestrated the other day. As you said, it wasn't really widely reported, these attacks. I mean, what could be more targeted or prejudicial than just saying, are you Jewish? And if the answer is yes, beating the crap out of the person.
Well, and also just going back for a second to this issue, Brazil being a melting pot, is America a melting pot? I don't know how much time you spent in Europe, but I spent a fair amount of time in Europe, not recently, of course, but over the past decades. And there are portions of Europe today where if you're not, for example, in Spain, if you're in the Catalan region of Spain,
they hate you.
yeah, they don't like the Spanish central government. And there are other regional portions of Spain that feel the same way, and same in Germany and to a certain extent in every one of the European countries. Whereas here in America, if you have a real, as they say, bona fide interest in becoming an American citizen, as my ancestors did, as your ancestors did, you leave your country of origin behind, you have affection for it. But once you get here, you revel in the fact that you're now a full-fledged American citizen. You're not any better or worse than somebody who got here a long time ago.
I got a question for you about that. I was thinking about it. Because there's all this spurious information about X number of people in Congress or dual citizens with Israel. I've never seen any evidence of that. The only element of evidence that's been presented is an incredibly dubious claim put forward by Cynthia McKinney in an interview on Iranian television.
You mean when she opened her mouth?
She just was very unsure of what she was saying. She seems to stammer and doesn't say it with confidence. It's not like she presents the thing, here's what I was forced to sign. She doesn't say who it is that's forcing her to sign it. There's all these rumors about people being dual citizens. I've never seen any evidence of that. That aside, I was thinking about this concept of dual citizenship, and I just fundamentally object to it. It's like having two wives. Which one are you dedicated to?
Well, the only benefit of having a dual citizenship is you don't have two mothers-in-law.
Right. But I mean, isn't it true that if you're going to be, dedicating yourself to the service of a particular country,
Well,
what if Israel got into a war with the United States and somebody who's a dual citizen of both countries?
well, that's the argument that's used. The same argument was used against Catholics, that if you got into a fight between, say, England and the Catholic Church, or a state that is Catholic,
Yeah.
would an English Catholic, on what loyalty?
Damn it, it died again.
Need me to hold something?
I'm just really concerned about hold that for one quick second. I'm just really concerned about what's going on with this sound recorder. It's burning through batteries at a rate that it never has before.
Must be a teenager or the second wife. Burning through money.
It's very hot.
That it is.
I mean, the recorder.
Oh, maybe that's the
Let's see if it comes back.
Do you want to maybe stand in the shade over here or something?
Oh, it did turn back on, so that's good. It's just a one little dot of power. I don't know if this is going to be too cooperative for the rest of the day. I'm going to have to really this going forward. Okay, I think
The basic idea is that if you're Jewish, you're automatically a supporter of the state of Israel, which is not the case. And even if you were, the idea is that to the extent American interests were opposed to the interests of the state of Israel, the rub is that a McKinney might say you can't trust a congressperson who swears allegiance or supports Israel. You can't trust that person to protect American interests, which is an outrageous comment to make.
I don't think we should trust anybody who swears allegiance to anything other than the Constitution of the United States. When you get into Congress, I don't think you should swear on a Bible, a Torah, or the Koran. It should be the Constitution.
I would take it a step further. I don't think you should trust anybody who works in Congress.
Well put.
So here, actually, this is the Diamond Street, right? 47th Street.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't know if you're allowed through here or not.
Well, this is where a lot of attacks were happening.
Yeah, and here's Fox. See, it is between 47th and 48th. Why do I know that, Jason?
Well, you've been there for interviews a number of times.
Well, I also keep track of where the McDonald's are, and McDonald's there.
That's terrible. I'm glad you're not eating McDonald's anymore, Charles.
No, I've switched
look,
to
Weed
Popeyes.
World.
I switched to Popeyes chicken.
Did you really?
Yeah, right. The last
Popeyes.
time, it's horrible. Let's
Well,
see
but
if
I'm
we can
saying
walk
it's been
down.
opening more restaurants in New York. It used to never have any.
From time to time, particularly in the summer, I don't mind having fried chicken, coleslaw, and stuff like that. Maybe even beer or white wine. But with
Popeye's fried chicken would make me sick immediately.
last time I got it, I had it on the train going upstate. I don't know if we're allowed to go through here.
I don't understand why it's closed. I guess
Because
it's
to protect. Are we allowed to walk through here? Can we go to Fifth? No.
not allowed.
Okay.
Wow. So, because they're probably anticipating that they'll run through here and that the
But why are
protest
these
will be
guys? Well,
smashing
let's
up
just
the street.
walk up to 48th and over.
They probably own the store.
Huh.
I mean, they're standing right in front of it. I don't know. Is this you guys' jewelry store right here?
Yes, sir.
So have there been like attacks? Is plan for a you mind if I speak to you for a second?
Yeah.
Pretty terrible what's been going on. People just attacking Jews around New York City for being Jewish.
Terrible. Terrible. No words.
Never thought the violence would come here to New York. Were you born in the United States or
I
did
was
you
born in
immigrate?
the United States and I was in Israel. I served 3 years. And,
Served 3 years.
Served 3 years in combat soldier.
Do you
Which part?
think?
I was in Ramallah, West Bank.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you
So,
think that perhaps the fact that every Israeli citizen must serve in the army provides in some Palestinian supporters' minds a justification for claiming that anyone in Israel could be a target because they're military?
100%.
That is.
100%. I feel like the hatred is beyond. The hatred is beyond who served and who didn't. It's more if you're Jewish, you're gonna get killed.
You're a target.
So let me ask you a jewelry question.
Yeah. It's like I'm working. So.
No problem. Gold's going up or down?
Gold going up.
All right.
It's going up. All right, thanks for talking to us.
See you, Malidani.
Thanks.
So these guys have got to be very concerned. I mean, that sort of just occurred to me while we were speaking to the guy, Charles. But it speaks further to this feeling that I'm getting that Israel is a lever that can be pulled at any time by.
Well, and again, put yourself in the minds that the Chinese Communist Party is trying to dominate, seize the chance to dominate the U.S. and therefore the world. So it's looking for pressure points to use against the U.S. that are unique problems for the U.S.
Yeah.
Historical support
For Israel.
is one, and the legacy of bad and tortured race relations is another. Neither of those
Well, let's look at
problems.
the first part for a second. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to stop you because
I'm used to it.
I know you're used to it, but also there's times that I want to bring up important
Sure,
points
sure,
that
sure,
if I lose them, they're gone forever. But there was quite a bit of laying the groundwork as far as spreading anti-Semitic thoughts and anti-Jewish sentiments through the internet, particularly where Crowdsource the Truth is concerned, because if you
Right.
recall, one of the very first controversies to come about is that tall alcoholic dope who I made
Don't
the
use his
huge
name.
mistake of hanging around with, put out this completely ridiculous statement that he was somehow affiliated with Mossad and that I was, because he had somehow gotten me involved with them. And that was something that was being spread quite a lot by many of the same people who are named in these lawsuits and bringing these lawsuits. And it's
Right.
almost as if they would have known that this Israel versus Palestine would be something that would be used to stoke anger and hatred later on.
I mean, doesn't that approach to debating remind you of like second grade and third grade, where little Joey would say about little Lisa, Lisa likes to eat her own boogers. You know, you're like, what could she say? You know, I mean, it's just a silly point. And, but more specifically, bless you.
A lot of allergies going on.
In the same,
Police van going the other way.
in the same breath that the people on the left will decry capitalism and inequality in capitalism, they won't acknowledge that very few people in the United States actually have capital, right? And it's not a Jewish thing, but the Jewish people, many of them do have capital. By the way, this is a great Chinese restaurant. I don't know if it's still open. It says it's open. Wu Liang Yi. I like Chinese food, and I've tried all sorts all over the world. It's very good. and I don't own an interest in it. And I love to see Chinese restaurants that have sort of a unprepossessing outside, and you'd walk right by this without even looking at it. But then you go in, the food's awesome. Anyway, the simple fact is, the system we have in America, I did an interview with Katja Blanova and Sputnik, it's not capitalism, it's debtism.
Yeah.
The average American has no equity, but a shitload of student loans, car loans, mortgage loans, credit card debt, you name it. And what people are trying to do is just stay current with their bills to the extent they're responsible, or looking for handouts to the extent they're not. Very few people have a pile of actual capital that's substantial in relation to their debt.
Yeah.
And we need to go back to that system where people are encouraged, frankly, to save more money than they spend, or spend less money than they earn after tax and save the difference and invest wisely over long periods of time. That's not America. It hasn't been for 40 to 50 years.
Hasn't Joe Biden's, shenanigans that he was doing with what was that, MNBA or whatever? MBNA.
Yeah, that's credit card
Probably
company.
MDMA as well.
Credit card company, yeah.
Right, but they changed something about the laws having to do with credit card debt that made it so that the credit card companies could get people more in debt and more in trouble and spending money that they
Right,
don't have,
right.
etc.
And honestly, there should be, to me, somebody who spends time with numbers more than words. If the government will only pay you 1.6% interest over the course of 10 years to borrow money from you, it should tell you something that a credit card company is going to charge you 40%
Right.
on your credit card. There's something the market is saying about your credit. And let me put it, it's a fine technical term. It sucks your
Yeah.
credit if you got 40% interest rates. So maybe down fifth, or we haven't done this in a while, have we?
I don't know.
We've gone up fifth. Well, we could go down,
Nice blast of air conditioning out of
maybe
there.
we should stay there.
The mirror store.
Want some Ray-Bans?
I'm wearing them.
Want some more? You can
Not right
customize them.
Yeah.
Put it on your credit card.
Business here, Charles.
Put it on. Why don't we get yourself? Where's the handbag?
Well, yeah. All these guys on the street. You mean?
Must be too hot for them.
Seems like
Can't
somebody-
stand the heat. They got out of the kitchen.
Well, maybe it's because all these cops are standing around anticipating a riot, and they figured.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Those guys, even though they're using stolen products, they're pragmatic. They don't want fights. They just want to sell stuff.
I've yet to see, in all the time we've walked by, an actual sale.
Good point. Do you guys know where the protest is happening? Is there going to be a march down here?
It's like usually like close to Times Square. Yeah.
Yeah, there's
Thank
not
you.
much
Okay,
going
well,
on.
stay safe.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe they're waiting for nighttime to cause
Yes,
chaos.
probably.
Chaos seems to be on the
Chaos.
menu, Charles.
Chaos is their name. Chaos is their game.
Well, we've been having some beautiful weather,
That we have.
and it's quite hot. Oh, yeah. This will satisfy people who have concerns about some of our technical woes. I'm going to be implementing an active cooling system for the farm.
Does that mean you're going to take a cold shower later or something, or what?
Got a heat sink coming
Uh-huh.
and a fan, but now the bigger problem is the batteries on this. We'll worry about all that later. What else do we want to get into, Charles, from the standpoint of information? ACU, ACUF, Dumb Joe saying incredibly stupid things.
I think there's somebody wrote an article about Doyle and Moynihan and the judge's order that the IRS must provide information that's in the record to Doyle and Moynihan. And that's caused a lot of speculation about what could that all be all about. There have been multiple articles about that article. There's somebody called Wayne Dupree. I'm not even sure who that is.
I've seen Wayne Dupree on Twitter and stuff.
He tweeted something saying this is ominous for the Clintons. I think
he have a radio show?
maybe. I think what's actually ominous is for the Clintons is also what's going on with Bill Gates and and Melinda and the foundation.
He's in New York right now.
Is he? Yeah. Well, when we see the degree to which the mainstream corporate-owned media can turn on Gates over the divorce and the Epstein allegations and the implications thereof, we then need to fold into the mix, as Andrea Woodberg has done from On American Thinker, the fact that we've called it out. The Gates Foundation, as smart as it supposedly is, and he is, has given hundreds of millions of dollars to fraudulent Clinton charities over many years.
Oops.
And we've called them out on it on our shows. We've called them out directly to the foundation, and nothing seems to happen. If you're going to discipline small charities, small fish, who don't have the same resources for breaking the rules, and likely using charity donations as a way to pay for political influence, you can't let the Gates Foundation off the hook. And so I'm hopeful that the heat rising against Bill Gates will also cause people to focus on Lindsay McGooey's excellent book called No Such Thing as a Free Gift, about the Gates Foundation and charities, and the earlier period of Bill's life when he rapaciously built, I would argue,
Stripper parties.
well, the monopoly that he rapaciously built, and his aggressive business practices. I think he was able, through the creation late of the Gates Foundation, to acquire a patina of respectability. After all, he got knighted by Queen Elizabeth.
This is the sales place right here.
What?
Bill Gates was knighted by Queen Elizabeth?
I think so.
This is all
In a-
products here rolled up in a bag.
In the same way that Ronald Reagan was. But when you're knighted as an American, you're not made a knight. You're made a...
Something else.
You're not called Sir Bill Gates. It's your, William.
I don't like
Gates.
any of this stuff, though. Like the British royal family, first of all, I don't understand why that still exists. Second of all, I don't know why Harry has left the British royal family, but still thinks, like, why do we care what he says? Didn't we?
Yeah. Well, he's had a rough. On the one hand, he's had a very rough life. This guy's watch out. Oh, come on, losing your mom.
Well, that's true.
And the accusations that Prince Charles is not his father. And
Well, I'm more interested in hearing him talk about that and what his not father's relationship with Jimmy Savile was, more than him saying that the First Amendment is ridiculous. Like, shut up.
Well, again, that's going back to base principles. And Harry is all in for globalism. I'm all in for shut the fuck it upism. If it's
Yeah. Well, his wife thinks she can run for president now that she's a British royal. That's absurd.
she could run for president of her house. Here's some. See,
Yeah.
that's that Shabbat thing.
Oh, right.
But I was talking again to Katya over the weekend or last weekend about this idea that Prince Harry would have the nerve to relocate here and start criticizing
Right.
essential elements of this country. I don't even think he's an American citizen yet.
Right. Deport his ass. Kick him out.
Well, just say, listen, dude, you're entitled to your opinions, but if you don't understand the First Amendment and the significance of it, perhaps you will never be a citizen of this country, because one of the reasons we have a First Amendment in this country is that you don't in your stupid fucking country. I mean, in England, they have the right to tell the press to just shut up.
Right. What's that called again? We've heard the term.
Yeah, maybe viewers will know.
They just say, like, this is the thing you're not allowed to talk about, and that's it.
And you're
so
not.
That's what I mean. The fact that this guy even thinks that he's royalty is offensive to me. He's a schmuck.
Well, he is. I mean, he is royal.
I'm sorry. I just denounced the whole concept. What is royal about them? They're regular people who have just fooled everybody into thinking they should have huge amounts of money. How does the Queen of England get money? Taxes?
Certainly not stripping. No.
But why are people of England giving them money to sit there and have them
Well,
tell you what's going on? and what
Again,
you
this
should
is
do?
kind of the obverse of Harry criticizing us. I mean, the English, if they want royalty, let them have it. It's not our. We don't have a vote on that. Right? If they want it, let them do it. It's a huge.
But don't come over here and start telling us what to do.
And equally, we shouldn't necessarily go over there and tell them what to do. So I think for them, the argument in favor of it is it's a huge money spinner historically for tourism. And actually, the Commonwealth, which is the number of countries that at one point were colonies or remain allied to England, is a loose trade association that helps English companies export a lot of products and services around the world. So from an economic standpoint, there are some benefits. But when you go into the twisted history of the royalty in the UK, it's important to understand that the current royal family is effectively German.
Right.
And then there are the questions of how did the royal family play in World War II?
Yes.
And quite frankly, how did the royal family and the government in England play in events of 2015, 16, and afterwards?
That's what I'm saying. I've had it with all of them. I don't trust the royal family. I don't care what Harry has to say.
And
I never even saw that show Suits.
And I'm getting sick and fucking tired of, anytime there's a commercial where they're trying to sell a luxury product, they have an English voice, male or female, talk about Jaguar or whatever, and instantly you're supposed to think it's, oh, okay, that's elegant, that's sophisticated English accent.
I just can't believe the audacity of Meghan Markle thinking that she's the queen of America now.
Period.
And that she's going to run for president. Like, how that could enter your head that you're the Duchess of whatever she is, which is, she's a member of
She's no longer. They've been booted out of that.
Good, but then why are they appearing at some event in LA where it says the Duke of whatever, and he's not that?
LA?
He's a big phony.
You mean there's something phony and artificial about Los Angeles, Jason?
Yeah, he's a big phony.
Wow. I had never heard that.
I think if they were going to leave the royal family, it should be like when Superman decided to marry Lois Lane. They got to live in like a shitty apartment.
That happened?
In Superman 2, he had to go into this special room to suck out all of his superpowers, and he just became a regular schmuck so he could marry.
Did he get a beer belly?
He got beaten up in the bar.
Wow.
And it was like, oh my God.
Then he got divorced?
No, it was weird in the theatrical release, but there's a whole, we're getting into real esoterica here, but there was a battle between Alexander Ilya-Salkind and Richard, what was the name of the guy who directed?
So 30
Superman
seconds
2?
ago you started speaking Swahili, just FYI.
The director got into a big fight with the producers of that first Superman movie, which at the time was the most expensive film ever made. So part of the way they were going to run the business of it was to make two movies at once, which also I don't think had been done before. And they got so pissed off at Richard Donner, the director, because it was going so over budget, that they said, forget about Superman 2, we're going to just use all this to make Superman 1. Then he said, screw you, I'm out. And the Directors Guild said, you can't put Donner's name on Superman 2, so they had to hire a new guy and change it. And they made a real convoluted story, but there is a Blu-ray release of the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2 that explains all this. Not that interesting, but...
Do you know any minutia about Superman?
About the movie. I loved that Superman 2 movie when I was a kid. When VHS came out, I had that tape. I watched it literally, I think, every day.
For how long?
I mean, probably from like age 9 to 10 or something like that. If the movie comes on now, I can recite every line.
Wow.
Not that that's a good thing. There's like a hole in my brain that's occupied by Superman
2?
Yes.
Huh.
But it involved Marlon Brando and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is, I just don't appreciate them straddling this pseudo-royal line and trying to tell Americans what to do and complaining about the British royal family.
Not to mention Harry's charity, which is a fraud.
Well, there you go.
Which we're going to have to get into. That's in South Africa. All sorts of problems with that.
South Africa.
Yeah, he teamed up with, I think, Mandela's family. I may have that wrong, but there's some...
So see, this is what I mean. All these guys, like the royal family and England, I mean, frankly, they are probably the group that all this anger should be directed towards as far as creating Israel and exiling Palestinians from where they want to be and stoking all this fear and anger and creating that stupid dossier.
Not to mention burning the White House down in 1812.
This is what I wanted to ask you, Charles. burning the White House down in 1812 was a crappy thing to do. But
I love New York.
as you know, Charles, I've created a new YouTube channel which is called Sunday with Charles.
How'd you come up with that name?
I racked my brain, and you know, the reason I did that was because I wanted to create a repository for all of our past shows that are no longer accessible since the Jason Goodman YouTube channel was removed from YouTube. I wanted there to be one spot that people could go to get all that stuff, and I've been loading up our past shows. And this morning, I played the very first episode of Charles Ortella's Closing In. Do you remember who our guest was on that?
I don't.
It was John Solomon.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And he was talking to us all about, what's that guy's name? George Papadopoulos.
Right.
And the meeting that he had with Alexander Downer.
Right.
And the funny thing is, I hadn't put this together until this morning, but George Papadopoulos was there at the Mike Lindell event where Patrick Byrne assaulted me, grabbed my microphone, had a physical struggle with me, and had two armed open carry guards throw me out of the place. Why was George Papadopoulos there with Patrick Byrne, who we know considers Warren Buffett to be his rabbi?
I don't understand this idea of, you know, I got nothing against young people, but I don't understand why a Donald Trump would hire George Papadopoulos as a senior advisor on anything.
Right, he looks like he's 15.
Well, put a senior advisor on video games or chess or something, but...
What I'm getting at is, was Papadopoulos a plant from the beginning, and is Patrick Byrne a plant, and are these guys working on some Sync Trump plan that's still going that I'm interfering with?
Perhaps. Perhaps. We will find out soon. Remember I sent you a lot of stuff, but I sent you something about how Stefan Halper was involved with Iran-Contra.
Third smartest crackhead in America.
Why are you saying he's that smart?
I think most of them are dumb.
I know.
Maybe he's down the line. I don't know.
So
yeah,
Jason, you've got this
Iran-Contra
apartment. You know, I think this. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
Wow.
This would look great in your apartment.
I don't think so.
Bet you could buy that for $25,000.
Hey, I wonder if that's the BMW that was doing donuts outside.
Let's stay away from it.
Well, the cops might be talking to them right now. But there was a BMW M3 doing donuts on the northern tip of Washington Square Park at that T intersection in a way that I found really dangerous. And it was a white M3, just like that.
Let's just not get too close to it.
No, not going to do anything.
There's a dog in the back seat.
That looks like Pennsylvania plates. I don't know if I saw the plates on the car that was doing the donuts, but I think that was. There's a lot of BMW M3s. Could be another white M3.
Bearded.
But doing donuts on New York City streets is not a bunch of kids having fun. It's not something that should ever be happening. That guy clearly is driving like a maniac. And his engine timing is all screwed up.
Because he is a maniac.
So wait a minute, you were bringing up something interesting that we forgot to complete about Papadopoulos?
About Halper being involved with Iran-Contra.
Right.
Another thing I would say on the subject of ACU and ACUF, in the case of ACU, the fake determination letter and ACUF, the fake determination letter, I think are made out using a type font that could well have been the type font of a typewriter owned by J. Curtis Herg's law firm, Herge. And that guy was very much involved at the center of the Iran-Contra scandal, raising money.
As was Barr.
Working. And it's interesting when you read into that history, the business model used in Iran-Contra was to set up multiple foundations and similar sounding companies, and have people either invest in the companies or donate to the foundation, and induce them to do that by arranging secret meetings with people like Ronald Reagan and others, and having the money from those people go to fund these illegal operations that Congress has specifically disapproved. Does that sound similar to Benghazi?
Yes.
You know, and so I think.
Well, and we also should not forget, Bill Clinton was pivotally involved in Iran-Contra as the governor of Arkansas when the Barry Seal planes with all the money and drugs flew into Mina.
Exactly.
Oh, this is the Empire State Building, Charles.
I think this is the pavement.
We're looking that way.
Oh, okay. Here it is. Long lines of people. Not.
Well, I think the entrance now moved around the corner for the... I haven't seen that before. This used to be the main entrance.
I know,
for
it's
the
around the corner, I think.
observation deck.
Entrance is around the
I
corner.
wonder why they changed it.
Who knows?
I love the Empire State Building.
Why?
It's just cool. I think the Art Deco thing, and you go up to the. I guess I don't know, because just always when I was a little kid, I would, kind of drive through the city in the back of my parents' car and look up at it and be amazed by it.
She's like, you know what, Jack?
And we never really were driving downtown, so I didn't really see the World Trade Center as much.
Did you ever go to the World Trade Center?
I have many times. I've been to Windows on the World. I've been to the observation deck.
Probably not recently.
I'll tell you what, the last time I went to the World Trade Center, the previous World Trade Center, was right after the last time I went to a Lee Stranahan 3D seminar.
Wow.
I think I was speaking at that one, but it was in Newark.
In Newark.
And on the way back from Newark, with a mutual friend of Lee and I, who now is in Ukraine, telling me that it seems like Russia will invade, we went to the World Trade Center, and that was literally like a few weeks before 9/11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, so here we are back in Fifth Avenue.
More stuff out of business.
Yeah.
So if you want to open that bizarre street level business in New York City that your income could never previously sustain the rent, now is the time. Basically indoor tennis, indoor golf, anything goes.
You get not a PPP loan, you get a PP loan, because that's what people are going to be doing, peeing all over your restaurant.
Right. Well, the other thing that, I think I might have mentioned this to you before we went on air, but there was a news story about a weed speakeasy.
Yeah. Next stop, for sure.
Well, this one already existed, and I thought I'm not giving anybody legal advice, and I'm not an attorney, and I'm not their attorney, but if I were, I would advise them not to go on the news and boast about having run an illegal marijuana speakeasy for years and years, because it seems like you're admitting to a crime, and even though you might not get arrested, I could easily see that being something that they would use at the Office of Cannabis Management to not grant you a license.
Is there such an office?
Yeah, Cuomo created it.
Let's get shots, 290 and Fifth Avenue. What's that?
Probably COVID shots, but what I was going to say is I had a vision in my head when I heard of that Office of Cannabis Management. I mean, if that's not a Saturday Night Live sketch that's writing itself, I don't know what is.
Was Saturday Night Live on last night?
I think it was the season finale. This used to be Willoughby's, right? We've said that before.
I think so, yeah. That's where I got my first and only nice camera.
Yeah, see, there's not really that many retail camera stores around in the city anymore. It's really basically just, I mean, you used to have that, Calumet. Well, you still do have Able, Cine.
Where's that?
That's downtown, but that's more like super expensive stuff that regular people wouldn't go to. But you just have B&H Photo and Adorama now. Less competition, because everybody's getting stuff from Amazon.
All right, 295th. Where's 295th?
This is it.
Right here.
You want to get a COVID shot inside that?
I think it looks too hopping to me. Actually, that is hopping for me.
Hop Sing?
Closed is hopping for me.
Oh. This is for rent.
Do you think this is actually called Bond's Dog Am? They got the thing wrong?
I don't know.
Dangerous thing to use the word dog in a Korean food. I love Korean food actually, but
I did a movie in Korea and it was not the best experience.
how long were you there?
I was there for like 3 weeks.
In Seoul or?
We were all over. We really traveled around South Korea quite a lot. Went to the famous Jeju Island. We were in Seoul.
Did you have any of that hard liquor of theirs?
Soju.
Ugh.
Yes.
And what's that other stuff that smells that they eat?
Kimchi.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about Korean food at all. And once you start getting outside of the realm of like your New York City or Beverly Hills Korean restaurant, it's not like that.
It's changed a lot, I'm sure, since I was there, but I stayed in a really nice Hyatt outside of Seoul that was up on a hill and had like 4 or 5 excellent restaurants.
One of the nicest hotels I ever stayed at was in Seoul. Actually, there was the Sheraton Chosen, was another one that I stayed in Korea. Not on this production. That was on the Unisys the first time I went to Korea. And that was like a city inside the hotel.
Wow.
Lots of restaurants and everything. And I remember I was meeting with this Korean manufacturer of a 3D lens at the time. And I said to them, you know, I've been in this hotel for like a week. I haven't left the hotel. I'd be very interested in seeing some authentic Korean cuisine somewhere else around Seoul. And they said, excellent. We'll have dinner at your hotel. And I was like, okay.
On you.
Correct. So that didn't work out the way I wanted it to. But Charles, if you want a beating, you could go into Lashes on 5th.
That's not for me, thank you.
I think it's probably more talking about eyelashes.
I've had enough beatings in my life.
50 Lashes. That would be a good name for a place that tortures you into wearing mascara.
I'll tell you what, I'm not in favor of violence against anybody, but having said that, have you heard of the latest of this Greta Thunberg, which she's going around saying?
What is she doing now?
We now have to reform the entire way in which we eat.
Oh, eat? Why?
Because of her.
But they're raising the price of beef, I saw.
Well, that's part of the plan to shut the industry down. Make it so expensive that you don't use it.
The beef industry?
Yeah, that's it. They're arguing that beef industry is incredibly destructive to the environment. Cows.
But dropping depleted uranium is okay, right?
That's great.
I saw another actually very interesting image that was talking about the pipeline getting shut down, and it showed a lithium mine and a pipeline. And the pipeline was running through a forest, and the forest was sort of kind of undisturbed, mostly. And the lithium mine was a gigantic hole in the ground that obviously disrupted the whole entire area. And I do believe that that only scratches the surface. I seem to recall from speaking to a friend of ours who knows more about this, that there's all kinds of chemicals that need to be injected into the ground and everything.
Yeah, I like being around young people, actually younger than 17, just looking at a young kid read for the first time, and it's really exciting to see things like that. But when I was young, one of my parents, famous
Speak of the devil, and a young maniac appears.
Famous lines,
Where's that person's parents?
which was being used too many times, is that children should be seen and not heard.
Well, where is that little kid's
Probably up there, probably the shopkeeper's daughter. But and you just, it's not like even the smartest person on earth in the current generation pops out of the womb and instantly knows by age 17 more than everybody else about everything. You should have a certain amount of humility and say, I'm only 17, I'm probably going to get a lot of things wrong. Maybe you've thought of this before, but why don't we stop cultivating cattle and instead eat shit? And that's when people like us say, F no.
What, does Bill Gates have a plan to turn feces into beef now?
Probably. Come on,
I
man.
said, and then everybody else said
Dude,
something
get out of my
different.
way. You're not on
We got
camera.
confused. Are you gonna do what?
Blocking the way to 7-Eleven, obviously a man of substance. Come
Just
to New
get out
York.
of
We're
my
part.
way.
We're part of the I Love New York Travel Bureau. We're trying to induce people to come here, watch these shows, and if you have a list of places you want to visit, and New York was on it, take it off.
Yeah,
Take it
I
all
mean, it's
off.
like, what does that guy hope to achieve by testing? Well, the battery just died on this, Charles.
You done?
Yeah, I think we're close enough to the end here that rather than wrangle around the batteries and go crazy, I'm just going to remind people to visit subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth. Actually, that's going to be the only place you can see Patrick Byrne assault me. It's totally free for everybody, so go on to that video. Is free. The rest of it is still containing sponsor exclusive content. I hope that people will choose to sponsor the show. You can also become a sponsor at patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. Lots of exciting developments happening with the Crowdsource the Truth video server. And I will follow up with Minister Schlapp and ask him if perhaps he was too busy tweeting nonsense today to have a serious discussion with you about what appears to be massive financial fraud in the American Conservative Union
Foundation.
It's the American Conservative Union Foundation. And it's just very curious that nobody's been talking about this but us, and Matt doesn't want to speak about it.
I understand why you wouldn't.
Have a great